Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back in War Thunder looking at another devblog for update 1.87, and this is for the KMS Nürnberg. The Nuremberg is going to sit itself probably at 5.3 or 5.7 on the top of the German light cruiser line, and it's definitely the best out of the bunch. When the Köln was added, there wasn't really any competitors for it, which is why when you see people complaining about the repair cost, in my opinion, it's kind of justified, because with the Köln and with the Emden, there wasn't really a reason to play anything else. And now with the Nuremberg coming along, we have an interesting option between the nations to actually be able to play. And what do I mean by this? Well, the Nuremberg, in all intents and purposes, even though it is a very similar machine to the Köln, is not the same light cruiser class. There are slight differences between them, but when we look in the game, they are very similar when it comes to their main armament and how they're going to play. There are minor differences that we'll go through in this video. But when we look at the other nations, we have had the Soviet light cruiser, which is a heavy cruiser, because of its guns, which is very similar to how the Köln or the Nuremberg will play with its large guns. Basically, you just have to hit and do a ton of damage. And then you've got the Brooklyn, which is going to be much more fast firing, but lower caliber rounds, which should do less damage. So we have an interesting dynamic going on here. Do you want to go for the ships with the big bruiser guns, or do you want to go for the ships which are much more fast firing, much more, well, I suppose they'll be more accurate, especially in arcade, but in realistic, maybe you want the guns to just be one of those big donk shot ones. And this is a thing which has been going on in Naval for a while. I've been playing quite a lot of destroyers during the events, mainly the British and American ones, and what I'm finding is against stuff like the PR-159, it's definitely a can I land shots on it and how much damage I can do before it opens up with its rapid fire guns. There is definitely a feeling that the 159 is incredibly good at what it does. But with destroyers, there is something else you have to take into account that, with light cruisers, there's something you have to take into account that destroyers don't really, and that's the idea of armor and how it actually affects your machine. So, with the Nuremberg being added, I definitely see more balance now. When we talk about the top light cruisers. Before, it was very obvious that the Germans had the advantage, but now, with the Brooklyn, now with the Soviet light cruiser, and hopefully the British get one too, we're going to see a little bit more balance coming to the force. Now, what's the difference between this thing and the Köln then? The differences are, it has the same main armament, so it has the three 150mm guns, 6 on the back, 3 on the front, in sets of triple stacks, and also it has a difference when it comes to its secondary armaments. That's pretty much the main difference. So the Nuremberg has 4 dual sets of 88mm, 2 single 40mm, 6 dual sets of 37mm, 7 single 20mm, and 2 quadruple sets of 20mm Vierlings, and another 6 dual sets of 20mm Zwilling anti-aircraft turrets. This thing is armed to the teeth when it comes to its secondary weapons. One thing it does lose, though, is its torpedo capabilities. One of the things that is nice about the Köln is you have sets of torpedoes all the way down the boat that you can use. I believe it has 12 torpedoes in total, 6 either side, whereas this machine here, it only has access to 3 torpedoes. So you're pretty much going, do I need torpedoes or do I need more secondary guns? And I feel like for me, personally, when I think about it, I would probably want the more guns to make sure that my vessel doesn't get annihilated by planes and doesn't get annihilated by smaller ships coming in. The light cruiser guns on the Nuremberg are very, very good. The 150mm in general are incredible when it comes to the Sorry, I just got an email. When it comes to the firepower that they can dish out, something that I talked about on the last dev server for update 1.85 was I was shocked by the amount of damage these guns could do to pretty much anything they hit. Their even one-shot ability versus destroyers made them incredibly good. And since we're getting another set of them, that is awesome for ship-to-ship combat. But when it comes to the other edges, this is where it becomes interesting. So the Köln is technically better against other ships because it has the additional torpedoes. But the Nuremberg is better against aircraft and smaller ships. So which situation fits which ship? Do you take the Köln out first so you can lay down the torpedoes, so you can block off areas, so you can actually fire at the enemy ships with them? And then, do you take out the Nuremberg second, because you know there are going to be aircraft in the air, and also smaller ships maybe nearer to your spawns? Would that be how to do it? Or do you just take the Nuremberg first, and try and use those 88s as long-range machines to be able to batter stuff around you? I feel like, for me, when I look at this ship, it's a little bit more aggressive than the Köln. It has more guns on it. You can probably push harder with it because of the fact that you have more guns and therefore you can annihilate smaller ships a lot quicker. So you can push into areas where the Köln isn't really able to. So at least there's that, for the Nuremberg. And I know a lot of people are unhappy that this got added since it is very similar to the Köln. And all I can say is this is exactly what the Americans got last update. And also, it wasn't as if the Köln was a bad vehicle. The ship is amazing, just like this ship will be as well. It may not be top dog, especially after looking at that American ship, but it still will be good. The only question is now, what do the British get? And I think the British will get the Town class. I've talked about this before in the Soviet devblog that we had a look at. The Town class really is the only one that makes sense. Hopefully we see a USS Belfast or something like this. If the British don't get anything, then, well, that kind of sucks. And the last point I do want to point out, which is very important to me since I've been grinding through a lot of these ships now. The stock grind on a lot of these cruisers is really abysmal, and the reason is because of the default shells that you normally have for your main guns. This machine here, it has a 50mm belt. That is good enough to protect it against pretty much all HE shells that can be fired out by the other machines that are currently in the game right now. And the issue with this is if you are a fully upgraded light cruiser, then you are at an inherent disadvantage when we're talking about doing damage to the enemy ship, especially with everybody running around with a lot of armor on. So, for me personally, when I look at top tier, when I look at ground vehicles top tier, when I look at air top tier, when I look at naval top tier, there is an inherent issue with the stock versus spaded arguments. I don't really think at other tiers it matters too much, especially in naval. I think most of the time it's okay, but at top tier with the light cruisers, it is a big problem. And hopefully with the repair changes and hopefully with the economy changes coming in update 1.87, we will see a change for these top tier vehicles and make it easier for them to get these shells, which mean that they can actually do damage. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.